Have you ever wanted a candy that looked sweet and innocent on the outside, but inside had blood and gore and bones? I've got one for you. We make a bloody surprise Easter bunny candy on this episode of Black Cat Crafts. So my channel is normally dedicated to Halloween Village, pieces, extras, dioramas, and personalizations, but today we're doing a candy that has blood and bones, and I'll show you how to make it. So our goal is this sweet and innocent looking candy, but when you stab it with a knife or bite into it, it actually bleeds and you hear the crunch of bones. So what I've got is a pretzel, and I've got a way to keep that pretzel hard and not melty with the rest of the liquid, and a blood that will ooze out, and then a pink gore on the inside. So it's actually surprisingly easy to make. You'll need a candy mold or two. In this case, I made the heart inside a heart shaped, but I also had a bunny candy mold. I also used pretzel sticks broken in half and cherry pie filling. So for step one, you'll want to do the cherry pie filling step first because those hearts will need to be frozen. Now, you don't have to do it in the heart shape if you don't want to. I found that this small Wilton, it's actually made for chocolates, was a perfect size for the Wilton bunny. So what you do to get that in there in an easy way is grab a cheap plastic bag. This tumbler is great for whiskey on the rocks, also perfect for this. And I poke one corner of that plastic bag down toward the bottom. The other one is sticking out, as you can see there. And what this does is it makes a disposable piping bag much cheaper than what you could buy unless you are a baker and do a lot of fancy cakes. So take that cherry pie filling and just take the red gelatin-like ooze around the cherries. You'll want to get as much in there as you can, and keep the cherries for later because we'll use those to flavor the pink part in there. What I'm calling it the gore. It actually has kind of the consistency of the Cadbury cream egg filling. So get a lot in there, as much as you can, and then I'll show you how to get it from this bag into the heart shapes really neatly. So there we are, we've got it in the point. And next I'll just grab a pair of scissors and cut the end off. So our next step is to fill the heart shapes up, as I mentioned a little earlier. And then once this is full, we're gonna pop it into the freezer. You'll wanna have it in the freezer at least overnight, unless your freezer is set to really, really cold. So it does take this stuff a little while to freeze itself. If you don't get a perfect fill with the piping, you can take a knife and move it around. So next step, let's make the bunny mold. So I start with some candy melts, and I followed the instructions on the package to melt them. It's important to ensure that all the candy melt pieces are melted all the way. Otherwise, it'll be a little lumpy. There's no downside to that, but I personally don't really like the taste of candy melts, so I want to make mine as thin as possible. To get this mold to work as easily and quickly as possible for me, I actually put it in the freezer for quite some time, so it's very, very cold. This allows the hot candy melt mixture to form a nice crust on the outside. So you'll want to get a decent amount in there. I'm starting with just enough to coat the bottom. I will add some more later on to get that a little thicker because right now it is really, really delicate, really thin. So I'll continue the process that you see here all the way around. And then I'll go ahead and continue this with all of the others in the mold. As I mentioned a bit earlier, I did that first layer really thin, so I'm adding a little bit more now. I'm going to use the same process to make the outside of the bunny just a little bit thicker so it's able to hold all the delightful insides until they're ready for their big reveal. So in step 3, we're going to make the bones, which are the candy melt covered pretzels. Start by breaking your pretzel sticks in half so they'll fit inside the bunny. Next, use a fork or a spatula to completely coat the pretzel sticks with the candy melts. Now from here, you'll need to spread them out on a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper or wax paper. So spread them out ever so gently. They will want to form a clump, and that's kind of a bummer, but it is the way these work. So you'll do a little bit of moving them around to get them to spread out. I found in this bunny you'll want to have 2 to 3 pieces of these little pretzels inside each bunny. So try not to let them get in clumps if you can help it. What you can do then is you can have the individuals to move around, make sure that you have enough room for the frozen heart, but also the pink fluff that goes inside that kind of holds it all together. So again, this is not the most fun part of the project, but one that's going to make your life a lot easier if you take a little bit of extra time to separate all those clumps. The ingredients you need for step 4 are, of course, the cherries left over from the first part of the project. So I've got a 1/2 cup of cherries. It's a heaping 1/2 cup, as well as 3.5 ounces of sweetened condensed milk, 2 tablespoons of softened butter, doesn't need to be melted, a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, a drop of cherry flavoring, and 5 cups of powdered sugar. It's a lot of sugar. This makes quite a bit. It's unavoidable. The quantities are what they are. So I find that this filling is actually really good on ice cream. It's also really good just with fresh fruit as almost a fruit dip. So drop everything into a blender. I started with the cherries and the sweetened condensed milk, and this step is really important because our goal is to puree the cherries. You're not going to have room in these tiny bunnies for big chunks of cherry, so they will have to be in a fine grind, almost liquefied. Add the butter and then give it a pulse. It's going to have a slow start, even with the newer mixer, and that's okay. Patience is really rewarded with a great end product here. So if you don't want to wait, you could stop the blender, stir it up a little bit with a spatula, or you could just do what I'm doing and take my time and puree it. Once that's a nice solid pink, all the butter and the sweetened condensed milk and the cherries are fully incorporated, then you will add the flavorings. So what you're seeing here is vanilla, and I added a drop of cherry to it already. So dropping it in there, this will give it a really nice flavor. The cherries that come out of the cherry pie filling aren't able to stand up to 5, I'm going to repeat it again, 3rd time, 5 cups of powdered sugar. It's just going to taste really, really sweet. So you need that vanilla, you need that drop of cherry drop of cherry flavoring to make sure this filling has a great flavor besides just being overwhelmingly sweet. So you now move everything to a stand mixer. You could probably also use a hand mixer if you have one. And this has the 5 cups of sugar and the liquid at the bottom. And it's a bit of a slow start. It will eventually get incorporated. Trust me, it doesn't look like it at first. And then all of a sudden, the powdered sugar just seems to melt. It's just really satisfying to watch. So one tip that I didn't think of, and it didn't really hurt me, but as you can see, there are some little powdered sugar pills in there, little clumps. If I had had my A game on, I would have sifted it first, but I just wasn't thinking about that, so I mixed it just a little bit longer to break up those clumps. So both ways are the right way. It just would have been a bit of a faster process if I had sifted out the lumps first. So now that all the sugar is blended in fully, we'll just test it. And you can test it with a spatula. It's got the right consistency, so it's going to be really runny, a bit like slime. Really thick body wash, but definitely not as thick as frosting. But let's see how it tastes. Wow. It's really sweet. It has a strong flavor of cherries. But that's a lot of sugar. Wow. This is going to be great inside those bunnies. So step 5, let's put it all together. You'll take those chocolate molds. I had mine in the freezer, so they're really, really frozen. Adding in the white chocolate covered pretzels. And then let's grab those hearts. Those, remember, when they get to room temperature, they will add the bloody look to these pieces. Now what I am doing here, I have a visitor. That's my dog Luna. She's hoping I drop it. Is I'm putting the cherry cream into a much larger bag. So this is not in an 8-ounce tumbler. It's actually in a large vase because it makes so much cherry cream. So I have a giant gallon-sized bag. and just like before, I get it all in a corner and I cut the corner to pipe it in the bunny molds. So there you see me doing that, and it is thick, so keep that in mind. I've actually found it's a little easier if I take the pretzels out and then use them to help push that cherry cream down into the bunny shape. So I'm filling these actually a little bit too full, so don't make the mistake that I made there. Do a little bit less, because you want to leave room for the heart, which you can see I'm putting in there. So when that gets to room temperature, it will bleed out of the bunny when it's either cut into or someone bites into it. So it's going to be really, really fun and really cool. But as you can see, they are sitting a little bit high. Again, lesson learned. When I made additional ones of these, I filled them less full, so it was easier to get the bottom of the bunny on. Looking good. I added just a little bit of cherry cream on the top. And while I'm doing this, I actually have the candy melts in the microwave again. I am getting them ready because now that everything's all in there, I'm going to put the bottoms on the bunnies. And as you can see, I poured them in. They are very full. There's also a little extra on the outside. So in step 6, I'll show you how to deal with that. So they come out of the mold really easy. I had these in the freezer overnight to make handling much simpler. You don't have to do this step, but I really recommend it. And as I mentioned a little earlier, there was a little bit of chocolate on the outside. It's really thin, easy to break off with a finger. And they look absolutely sweet and innocent. They're just perfect in every way. You could decorate these at this point. I didn't for the video. I thought that they were more undercover looking like this. But certainly you could jazz them up. I did there with a little bit of coconut that I used green food coloring on and then some sprinkles. So let's give it a try, see how it works. That's the big reveal, always the nerve-wracking part for me. But as you can see, the blood is coming out. The cherry cream looks great. We've got the bone. The pretzel is still crispy because we covered it with the white chocolate. So that sweet and salty is just delicious. This whole thing is actually a really tasty treat. Gory, very dark. but actually good to eat. Doesn't just look good on the internet. So there's the bone that I mentioned before, the pretzel, still crunchy. As you can see, it's not flopping around. It's not super wet, even though all the ingredients are wet. So the white chocolate did what it looked like it was going to do, what I hoped it would do. And the bunny is just itself. It's so cute. The mole has a little bunny tail, cute little bunny ears, the little eyes and everything. Makes this really easy, so you don't have to be really artistic to be successful with this particular project. So thanks for stopping by Black Cat Crafts. I typically do all sorts of Halloween village pieces, whether it's fantastic dioramas, little personalizations. I do some easy and some more complicated stuff. So check my channel out and give me a like or dislike if I'm not your thing, and tell me what you want to see in the comment section. Thanks for stopping by.